Hello there, you're watching All 24 News, English news program. I'm your host, Karim Zachary, and these are your headlines. Russia has used its veto at the United Nations Security Council to scuttle a draft resolution that sought to condemn its annexation of Ukrainian territory. After an announcement of Burkina Faso's army ousting military leader Paul-Henri Damiba and dissolvement of government, the African Union has expressed concern on the situation in the country. Hurricane Ian made landfall on coastal south of Carolina on Friday, threatening the historic city of Charleston with severe flooding. Also coming up, the International Fair of Tourism in Algeria continues to take place in the capital, Algiers. Hello again and welcome to the program. First in our topical news, the General Caliph of the Tijani Order in the world, Ali Belarbi, received at his residence in Nigeria the General Director of the Nigerian Petroleum Company, Malam Mele Kyari, who is a Tijani adept, who has very good relations with Algeria. The General Director of the Nigerian Petroleum Company will visit the global headquarters of the Tijani Order in Madi, Lagouat province in Algeria soon. News bulletin, and fast in our topical news. In a very special ceremony, the Russian president declared the annexations of the Donbass in addition to Zaporizhia and Kherson to Russia after holding what it called referenda of Ukraine. Western governments and Kiev said the votes breached international law and were coercive and unrepresentative. Nabil Khazini reports.
A day for celebrating victory and a moment to show strength.
Раз, два, три! Hurrah!
It was another best time for the leader of the Russian Federation to announce to his people another triumph. For Vladimir Putin, that was a victory for history.
We have become stronger because we are together. The truth is on our side, and strength is in the truth, which means the victory. Victory will be ours.
Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin.
When the gates of the Kremlin Hall opened up for the Russian president, that was the beginning for a formal process to open the doors of the whole of Russia for the annexation of 4 regions of Ukraine. 24 busy hours, treaties signed, a stage to show unity, and a speech before the political elite to hail victory and to tell the world that the people of the 4 regions are now forever Russian citizens.
They have chosen to be with their people, to be with their motherland, to live its destiny, to win together with it. We stand by the truth. We stand by Russia.
A speech was not without mention in the West, an old new rival accused by Vladimir Putin of wanting of all costs to preserve a neo-colonial system and to turn Russia into a colony.
We need to turn this shameful page. Destruction of Western hegemony, which has started, is irreversible. I repeat it again. It won't be like it used to be anymore. Battlefield where we were brought by fate and history is a battlefield for our nation, for the greater historical Russia.
People followed proceedings attentively in the Donbass region and celebrated the results of the referendum strongly denounced by Kiev and its Western allies.
For me personally, I was born in the Soviet Union. We have always been a part of the Union together with Russia, and I want to be back in my country, back home.
The West says it will not recognize Russia's move, calling it illegal. This is another clash between the two sides, but no one knows how all of this will come to an end.
And in the same context, Russia used its veto power at the UN Security Council to scuttle a draft resolution on Ukraine annexation, where 10 countries were in favor and 4 abstained. Miriam Zian on the following.
Russia vetoed the Western bid at the UN Security Council to condemn its annexation of Ukrainian territory, but found no other support, with its closest allies abstaining. Yesterday, 15% of Ukraine's territory was proclaimed by Russia in the biggest annexation in Europe since World War II. The US ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, introduced a resolution to the UN Security Council calling on member states not to recognize any altered status of Ukraine.
The resolution is straightforward. It condemns these illegal referenda. It calls on all states to not recognize any altered state of Ukraine. And it requires that Russia withdraw its troops from Ukraine immediately.
The resolution was co-sponsored by the US and Albania and condemned the referenda in the Ukrainian regions. 10 nations voted in favor of the resolution, whereas China, India, Gabon, and Brazil abstained. Russia, which has the veto power, blocked the adoption of the resolution, arguing that the regions chose to be part of Russia.
Tell me, do you seriously think that Russia will consider and support such a project? And if that's not the case, it turns out that you are intentionally pushing us to use the veto power so that we can then talk about Russia abusing that right. Such openly hostile actions on the part of the West are a refusal to engage and cooperate within the Council, a denial of experience gained over many years. This is nothing more than a low-level provocation whose objective is clear to all of us.
While the UN is assessing the current development in Russia-Ukraine's conflict, some countries are annoyed that the West is focusing all the attention on Ukraine.
Still with the same topic, Western leaders condemned Russia for its annexation of 4 territories, including the 2 Donbas republics, Zaporizhia and Kherson regions, into the Russian Federation. US President Joe Biden vowed fresh sanctions and more aid for Kyiv. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced that the illegal annexation proclaimed by Putin won't change anything and that all territories are Ukrainian land. A similar statement came from the foreign ministers of the G7 states, who declared that they would never recognize the entry of the 4 regions into the Russian Federation.
No, America and its allies are not going, let me emphasize, are not going to be intimidated, by Putin and his reckless words and threats. He's not going to scare us, and he doesn't, or intimidate us. Putin's actions are a sign he's struggling. The sham referenda he carried out and this routine he put on, don't worry, it's not on there if you're looking, okay? The sham routine that he put on this morning, showing the unity and, as people holding hands together. Well, the United States is never going to recognize this.
Moving on now, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg on Friday rejected Russia's illegal and illegitimate annexation of 4 regions of Ukraine. Stoltenberg called it the largest attempted annexation of European territory by force since the Second World War. The comments came after Russian President Vladimir Putin proclaimed Russia's annexation of a swathe of Ukraine in a speech at the Kremlin. But the event was overshadowed by one of Russia's worst battlefield defeats of the war, with one of its main garrisons surrounded.
What we have seen over the last weeks or days is the most serious escalation of this conflict since the invasion on the 21st of February. Because we have the combination of the mobilization in Russia, combined with the reckless, dangerous nuclear rhetoric, and then today's illegal annexation or attempt to annex parts of Ukraine. Together, this is the most serious escalation of the conflict since the start. This land grab is illegal and illegitimate. NATO allies do not and will not recognize any of this territory as part of Russia. We call on all states to reject Russia's blatant attempts at territorial conquest. These lands are Ukraine.
The state-owned company in charge of the plant announced on Sunday that the Director General of the Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine had been detained by a Russian patrol, and the UN nuclear watchdog said it was looking for clarifications around 4 p.m. Ihor Morashov was stopped on his way from the largest nuclear power plant in Europe, Zaporizhzhia, to the town of Enerhodar. Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, and other EU officials were present for the official opening of the new pipeline that will transport natural gas from Azerbaijan to Bulgaria. This will replace the Russian gas that was cut off to Bulgaria in April as a result of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The 182-kilometer pipeline was hailed by von der Leyen as a game changer for the security of energy in Europe.
A new era for Bulgaria and Southeast Europe begins. Bulgaria used to receive 80% of its gas from Russia. That was before Russia decided to launch an atrocious war against Ukraine and an energy war against Europe. This pipeline is a game changer. It's a game changer for Bulgaria and for Europe's energy security.
After an announcement of Burkina Faso's army captain Ibrahim Traoré, who has ousted military leader Paul-Henri Damiba and dissolved the government in a second coup, the African Union has expressed its concern at the evolving situation in Burkina Faso. The constitution has been suspended and the transitional charter dissolved. Borders are closed indefinitely and all political and civil society activities are suspended. A curfew has been declared. The chairperson of the African Union Commission, Moussa Faki Mohamed, therefore called on the national army forces in the country to abide by their Republican message of defense of the country's internal and external security.
Unfortunately, our common ideal was betrayed by our leader, Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba, in whom we had placed all our trust. Indeed, the deterioration of the security situation which justified our action has been relegated to the background in favor of unfortunate political adventures. Far from liberating the occupied territories, the once peaceful areas have come under the control of the terrorist armed groups. Our valiant people have suffered enough and are still suffering.
A regional court of justice on Friday dismissed members of the Maasai community who challenged the decision by the Tanzanian government to mark out their ancestral lands to protect wildlife. Maasai who live in the Ngurunguru district in northern Tanzania accused the government of wanting to relocate them so that they can organize safaris and hunting parties in this region, one of the most touristic sites in Eastern Africa. An official from Japan's defense ministry strongly condemned North Korea's firing of 2 ballistic missiles on Saturday, saying the country has never in the past fired 4 times in a single week. Meanwhile, Yoon Sung-yeol, the president of South Korea, denounced what he called recent military provocations by the North and vowed to step up joint military exercises with the U.S.
앞으로 정부는 한미 연합훈련과 연습을
Going forward, the government will further strengthen the Korea-US joint exercises. We will respond strongly to North Korean provocations and threats by showing them the alliance in action.
Just this week, they have fired 4 times. North Korea's actions, including this provocative, one-sided escalation of repeated ballistic missiles launches, are a threat to the peace and security of our country, region, and the international community, and we absolutely cannot tolerate it.
A grand flag raising ceremony was held at the Tiananmen Square in Beijing on Saturday morning to mark the 73rd anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. A huge crowd of spectators gathered at the square in the early hours, waiting for the exciting moment of the national flag being raised. People watched the flag slowly rising while passionately sang along at the national anthem when it was being played in the background. Hundreds of Palestinians attended on Friday a funeral procession of a Palestinian boy who died of a heart failure after being chased by Israeli soldiers in the occupied West Bank. 7-year-old Ryan Sulaiman died on Thursday when he was coming home from school with other pupils in a village near Bethlehem when troops gave chase. His father reported that his son died on the spot from fear. Thousands of demonstrators gathered in Baghdad's Tahrir Square on Saturday morning, waving Iraqi flags and chanting slogans, marking the third anniversary since mass anti-government protests shook Iraq in 2019. From Tahrir Square, demonstrators walked to the middle of the Republic Bridge leading to the Green Zone and faced security forces standing atop a concrete roadblock. Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi released a statement on Friday calling on the demonstrators to abide by the peacefulness guidelines. To Iran now, the number of protesters killed by the authorities rose to 83. Demonstrators continued for the second consecutive day over the death of Mahsa Amini and rejection of the mandatory use of the veil in public spaces. Hundreds have been injured in clashes with the security forces who use live ammunition and tear gas. Protesters and police engaged in violent clashes in Iran. The clashes occurred on Friday in the southeastern province of the country. According to officials, the protesters gathered in front of a police station and threw stones on police. The latter responded by opening fire, which resulted in the death of 19 people and rose the death toll to more than 80 due to the violent confrontations. Hurricane Ian made landfall on coastal South Carolina on Friday, threatening the historic city of Charleston with severe flooding after the deadly storm caused catastrophic damage in Florida, killing dozens and trapping thousands in their homes. Islam Sid reports.
Hurricane Ian brought down its strong rainy winds over South Carolina on Friday after devastating vast swaths of Florida and killing many people, mostly by drowning. Ian moved to South Carolina, where it made landfall near Georgetown as a Category 1 hurricane, with winds as high as 140 kilometers per hour. However, it later weakened to a post-tropical storm with winds up to 110 kilometers per hour, causing sudden flooding in this state in North Carolina.
We're already seeing the impacts of the storm in South Carolina as I speak, and in Georgia as well. Now is the time for the residents impacted to execute their hurricane plans. State and federal search and rescue operations remain underway in Florida. FEMA's urban search and rescue teams are part of a unified effort to conduct operations by air, land, and sea in coordination with our federal partners, as well as state and local officials.
President Joe Biden said Hurricane Ian is likely to rank among the worst storms in the nation's history and called for residents to heed all warnings by local officials, who had urged the population not to drive on roads invaded by water.
My message to the people of South Carolina is simple. Please listen to all the warnings and directions from local officials and follow their instructions. And as you all know, the situation in Florida is far more devastating. We're just beginning to see the scale of that destruction. It's likely to rank among the worst of the nation's and the worst in the nation's history.
Around 570,000 homes and businesses were already without power on Friday night in North and South Carolina and Virginia. U.S. scientists believe that rays accompanied Hurricane Ian have increased by at least 10% due to climate change. Estimates suggest that Hurricane Ian could cost brokers tens of billions of dollars and weigh on U.S. growth, including flight cancellations and damage to agricultural production. As Ian swept through California and Cuba, the aftermath was tough. It flooded coastal areas, caused power grid, and destroyed homes and businesses, with efforts to save what is left.
Still with the same hurricane, Cubans hit the streets across several neighborhoods in Havana for a second night late on Friday to protest over the continuous blackouts caused by Ian hurricane that swept through the island. Hundreds of people chanted, "Turn on the lights," as they walked through the dark streets, with some claiming that the hurricane did not pass through certain neighborhoods that lost power as well.
Without being necessary, because the cyclone did not pass through Havana. We have spent 4 or 5 days without any power. It's like being in hell. That's why we are out on the street and will keep coming out.
We have had no electricity for 4 days, since Tuesday at 10 in the morning. But in other places there is electricity. What should we do? The only thing we want is electricity. I had to throw out all of my food today because I did not have anywhere to store it.
Brazil's President-elect Jair Bolsonaro is fueling uncertainty about the country's electronic voting system as the election nears. Bolsonaro maintained his claims that the voting machines, which have been in use for a quarter of a century, are vulnerable to fraud. However, Brazil's top electoral authority says the system has been tested thoroughly, and some critics of Bolsonaro say he may be laying the groundwork for an attempt to cling to power if the vote doesn't go his way. A viral disease has affected over 2 million people and killed close to 100,000 cows and buffaloes. The outbreak has caused cattle farmers to suffer devastating financial losses. The virus, which is called lumpy skin disease, is spread by insects that feed on blood, like mosquitoes and ticks. Infected cows and buffaloes get fevers and develop lumps on their skin. It causes emaciation, that is decreased milk output, and birth defects in addition to death. To Algeria now, where the International Tourism Fair is being held. It constitutes an opportunity of national and international tourism actors to show their offers for the public. Nabil Khazini again.
Being at the center of the new world, Algeria, which has a lot to offer for fans of tourism, is hosting 200 exhibitors from different nationalities at the International Fair of Tourism, with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia being the guest of honor. This exhibition space aims to promote and to introduce the various tourism offers and to enable tourism operators and the general public to learn about the best possible offers for those who admire taking journeys around the world.
We really want to build a bridge between Algeria and China. So really welcome all the Algerian people come to China. I feel very happy here in Algeria. I can feel the gentle people. I can feel the beautiful culture and beautiful characters. Algerian people and Chinese people, we are friends. So friends in the past and now I hope in the future, always friends.
As tourism is a link between culture, traditions and visitors, the fair is also a chance for artists to show what their hands can make. Known for possessing all the tourist attractions to become a leading pole, the Algerian Sahara marks a significant presence at the fair.
We hope for more development and prosperity for tourism in the Algerian desert. We'd love to see more tourists coming both from abroad and Algeria. We have many touristic regions with beautiful landscapes to offer. We are here to welcome you in Tamarasset.
The Algerian desert has a heritage, history and culture dating back thousands of years, making all of that rarely found in other regions in the world. It is a very interesting tourist destination and a favorite one for adventurers and lovers of wandering in an unlimited landscape.
And now time for some news in brief. Let's follow.
Iran's intelligence ministry said 9 foreign nationals from Germany, Poland, Italy, France, the Netherlands and Sweden were arrested at or behind the scenes of riots, along with 256 members of outlawed opposition groups, during deadly street protests sparked by the death of Kurdish woman Mahsa Amini, as demonstrations across the country entered the third week amid gunfire. The leaders of the main Serb and Bosniak parties contesting elections held their final rallies on Friday. Influenced by war in Ukraine, Bosnians will go to the polls on Sunday to elect new Serb, Croat, and Bosniak members of the country's inter-ethnic presidency. EU ministers on Friday agreed cuts to peak hour power consumption and windfall levies on energy companies in an urgent effort to bring down sky-high energy prices. The decision announced by the Czech Republic in its role holding the EU presidency. 5,000 Russian soldiers may be about to get caught up in the Ukrainian pincer maneuver in the city of Liman in Donetsk region. If the Ukrainians manage to capture the city, it will be the most significant victory since the Ukrainians captured large parts of the Kharkiv province.
Well, we reached the end of our World News program. For more news stories, don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you for watching, and take care.